Recently, Bethesda released a new Dev Dive episode. There was a lot of great information given, and since the pit releases this Tuesday, September 13th, now is the best time to go over what we have coming and what to expect from Expeditions. In this episode, lead level designer Craig Bernardo and senior quest designer Chris Marshall are asked several questions about the new update for Fallout 76 titled The Pitt Expeditions. They start off by introducing themselves.
Hello, I'm Craig Bernardo, lead level designer for Fallout 76. I've been on this project since the beginning.
And I'm Chris Marshall. I'm a senior quest designer. Also, I've been on this project since Wild Appalachia right after release, and have worked on numerous quests and events, and now working on the pit.
The first question was asking them to give a quick overview of what the Pitt Expeditions is about, and Craig was the first to answer.
Yes, Expeditions is a new gameplay mode for Fallout 76 where players get to travel outside of Appalachia. The first location we're going to is Pittsburgh, where players get to do new quests that we call missions. These are repeatable quests. Every mission features a semi-random objective, so every experience you play will be a little bit different than the last.
As we already know, Expeditions is kind of like Daily Ops, and at the same time, it is a bit different. For one, there is no timer, so you can take as long as you want. Also, as Craig stated, the mission is always going to be a bit different each time you do one. The next question was asking how players can take part in Expeditions. Chris answered this one.
Players will start out in Appalachia doing a new set of daily quests that we call Refuge Dailies, and that's called that because the responders are back, they've been revived, and they've set up in the White Spring Resort, which we now call the White Spring Refuge. And so players will be doing quests for them, and that will build up the resource you need to start an expedition mission, which is the ultrasight batteries that power the vertibird. Yeah, you can absolutely play with your friends. You can do it solo if you want to, but you can team up. All you have to do is just join the team and then join the active mission from the paper map.
So again, Chris hit the highlights and explained that we will be getting a bunch of new daily quests specifically for Expeditions, which will have us doing various tasks for the responders at the White Spring Refuge. I expect those to evolve as the game goes on, but for now, we have a bunch of new things to do each day. Our next question is, why the pit? Craig answers this one.
The pit is a classic location from Fallout 3 DLC, and it's near enough to Appalachia for players to reach it by vertibird. It's nostalgic. It's a very unique atmosphere that we were keen on going back to. Our core Fallout fans love it. Internally, we loved it too, so that's why we wanted to choose the pit.
This one really spoke for itself, and Craig is right. The pit is very close, so it just makes sense that this would be our first expedition. Rolling right into the next question, which was asking how they incorporated the design of the pit as it compared to the version we saw in Fallout 3. Craig again answered this one.
Absolutely. While the pit was set far in the future from 76, it's always been a haven for brutal raiders, represented in our game by the fanatics, who will go at any lengths to crush their opposition. We also brought back the Trogs, which were a unique creature to the DLC content, and the Auto Axe, which was a weapon that was premiered for Fallout 3 expansion.
It is nice to see that they are keeping things that were unique to the pit in Fallout 3 and not making too many changes from that. I know so many people who are looking forward to getting their hands on that Auto Axe too. Chris was asked about what makes the pit unique from Appalachia.
It's a very different environment from Appalachia. It's much more hostile and much more urban. The pit was hit directly by the bombs during the war, and so we have all of these nuked out skyscrapers, and the industrial waste of the area mixed with the radiation has made it a much more hazardous environment, and of course given rise to the troglodyte degeneration contagion, which creates the trog enemies that players will be fighting.
Right away, we know that radiation is going to be a big deal here. You would be best served by making sure you have a hazmat suit or some power armor, and an ample amount of Rad-X and Radaway too. I tested the pit in the public test server, and let me tell you, my power armor came in very handy. Chris was then asked about the two missions we are getting in the update and how they differ from one another.
Yeah, Union Dues is more of a close homage to the original DLC. We tried to keep the environment and the themes very similar. And then for From Ashes to Fire, that was our opportunity to do something new and show players a new side of the pit they've never seen before. So we have the trench, which really evokes the toxicity of the pit. And then we also took inspiration from some of the churches of the Pittsburgh for the Sanctum location, and even some fake catacombs people had built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, something like that in Pittsburgh as tourist attractions. We used those as an inspiration for Beneath the Sanctum that players can delve into.
So Union Dues harkens back to the Fallout 3 version of the pit, while Ashes to Fire adds to the lore by giving us more areas to explore and really ties in the real-world Pittsburgh with the catacombs. Again, going to Chris, he was asked if there was any consideration around feedback given about quests from past updates and the PTS.
Sure, I mean, obviously you're going to see a lot of comparison to daily ops, but one thing we definitely wanted to do for our missions is we wanted to remove the timed element from daily ops. You can spend as much time as you want in a mission. It will only progress when you progress the objectives. And we also wanted to make sure that it remained a multiplayer experience. So while it is more similar to a typical, one-off quest, teammates have a much bigger role in missions. Teammates can all help complete all of the objectives and progress the quest.
Chris really kind of missed an opportunity to expand on specifics here. He instead focused on the removal of the timer and the fact that teammates can help complete objectives. I feel like the answer just danced around the question, never having actually answered it. The next question asked how the pit in 76 differs from the pit in Fallout 3. Chris again answers the question.
Yeah, so obviously the pit from Fallout 3 is far in the future, and some of those specific things you won't see a lot of any characters who are returning from the old DLC, but a lot of the vibe is kind of the same. We still have raiders vying for dominance. They haven't fully established their dominance yet, so while things are looking dire for the Union, players are able to help keep them afloat and keep hopes alive for civilization and the pit.
Again, the answer just wasn't giving us anything at all, so moving right along, the next question moves back to Craig and asks, why are the responders at the White Spring?
The White Springs is a huge, really cool space, but there was hardly any reason for the player to return to it. It wasn't getting a lot of player traffic coming back and forth. So we basically made that the responders base, and there's plenty of room for us to move forward and add more story content for Expeditions.
This, of course, makes sense from a developer standpoint and from the standpoint of players not really having a reason to visit the White Spring. It does not make sense to use the responders there in my view, but I guess if you think about it, there really isn't anywhere else that is centrally located that would work. The next question asked if the responders' presence would be expanded or if it would just be expeditions going forward. Craig again responds.
It's more expedition related moving forward, but yeah, we love the responders, and I'm sure you'll see more of them in the future, and we're going to expand on that content with future expeditions.
There's not much to unpack with that answer, but it is nice to hear that they are planning to expand on the responders' role in-game. Craig was then asked about the daily quests and if those are going to be expanded on too.
Yeah, the Refuge daily quests, they're short. They're meant to give the players the feel that they're actually helping people in Appalachia. We'll be adding more of these over time to expand the expedition feature and building up a pool of quests.
That was kind of a short answer, but it does show that the team is dedicated to expanding on expeditions as a whole rather than just adding new locations. Chris was then asked about the factions and the people we will be encountering in the pit.
Yeah, so the two main factions are the Union and the Fanatics. The Fanatics are a gang of raiders who've slowly consumed all of their other rivals and are on the verge of true dominance in the pit, but they're opposed by the Union, who is our player-friendly faction, and they are themed around blue-collar workers and their descendants who worked the high-tech factories of the pit making war equipment and machines. So they have a lot of expertise, and that's allowed them to hold out the longest against the Fanatics. And so players will meet a lot of Union NPCs. Skippy Rorich is one who's come to Appalachia to ask for help, and he's sort of the one that ropes players into helping them out. And then in Union Dues, players will meet Hex, and she's a scrappy freedom fighter type. She's a spy master who's used double agents to infiltrate the fanatics at the risk of their own lives to kind of keep them one step ahead. And then in From Ashes to Fire, players will meet Danilo, who is a shadowy character who has the suspicious knowledge of the inside workings of the fanatics, and he really helps drive home sort of the intensity of that faction and what people have to do to survive against them in the pit.
This time we got a lot of good information about the struggle going on in the pit. It is clear that the Union is ultimately going to become the slaves that we see in the Fallout 3 version of the pit, and the fanatics will ultimately become the dominant force in Pittsburgh. What I like is that we are finally getting the backstory and getting to see the early beginnings of what the pit becomes years later. Chris was then asked about the characters at the refuge.
There's Orlando, who's working for the mysterious Whitespring management that some veteran players may have an idea of who their true master is. And then we also have some responders characters, such as Rucker, who's working diligently to make sure that the responders are able to help as many people as possible.
What we need more than anything is know-how. So I propose we trade.
And also Esme, who's a chef who's just trying her best to feed all of these refugees who've flooded into the White Spring, and is the focus of one of our refuge daily quests.
Even though he did not give too much away, it is nice to see that we are getting more lore from the Appalachia side of the house too. The next question was about the Trogs and how the team went about recreating them in 76. Craig answered this one.
We wanted them to have an authentic throwback feel to Fallout 3 DLC, but we also recognized that they needed some gameplay improvements. Originally, the Trogs in Fallout 3, they were melee-only attackers. So we came up with two new variations, a Trog Fledgling that has an acid spit, so it covers our ranged attacks, and then a Trog Superior, who's a bigger, beefier Trog that has a blinding roar attack.
Clearly the Trogs in 76 are going to be much more formidable than the ones we saw in Fallout 3, and that at least makes sense because the radiation levels would have been much higher and the Trog contagion would have been more potent at this stage than it would have been at a later point when we see them in Fallout 3. Craig was then asked how players are going to be able to get the rewards for expeditions. Chris also adds some insight.
Initially, players will be able to unlock these through the Season 10 board. After Season 10, they'll be available for purchase with stamps in Giuseppe's shop. Chris, can you tell us a little bit more about Giuseppe's?
Yeah, Giuseppe's a new vendor that we have in the White Spring Refuge.
Giuseppe della Ripa, at your service.
Everything in his shop is sold with this unique Expeditions currency called stamps that you get by completing missions and completing bonus objectives within the missions. And really the whole point of Giuseppe is to add a little bit of RNG protection, and so it's a really nice feature. I know I really appreciate being able to target the one thing that RNG just has not given me over however many missions it's taken.
They were then asked about the unique rewards.
The Union Power Armor set bonus grants massive poison resistance. It also provides a plus 75 carry weight, which makes it the first power armor outside of the excavator to give an additional carrying capacity. The auto axe doesn't have high durability, but it deals massive damage as an auto melee weapon, and players can enhance the damage with a variety of elemental mods for the build out.
Chris was also asked about the other rewards that can be purchased.
Yeah, so this is the first time we're including legendary modules in the reward pool, which is huge for repeatable content. Players will be able to get 1 to 2 of those per mission playthrough, and also once per week they'll be able to get one random unlearned plan from the pool that they don't have yet, which is really nice, kind of a more RNG protection type thing. There'll also be a bunch of pit-themed camp items, new outfits, mods for all the new gear. They'll all be available through Giuseppe for purchase with stamps.
The rewards we are getting are kind of cool. As a Power Armor user, I really like the Union set. I know a lot of you are really looking forward to that Auto Axe too, and it does look great. The camp builders out there have not been left out either, as we are getting several new pit-themed camp items too. Basically, there is something for everyone in this expansion. The next question was about the new currency called stamps. Craig talked about them.
Players can earn stamps through the missions and the season board. Every mission has several optional objectives, and completing those gives bonus stamps, as does kicking off new missions. Players can earn up to 10 stamps per mission.
Chris was then asked if the inventory for Giuseppe is fixed or will be expanding too.
Yeah, we're definitely going to expand Giuseppe's inventory over time as we add new expedition missions. And of course, as Craig already said, the Auto Axe and Union Power Armor will be added after Season 10.
So, as we have seen already, season rewards will end up being added in after the season ends to allow players that may have missed out the opportunity to purchase them instead. I am okay with this, as it gives new players a chance to get the items they may have missed already from past seasons. Chris was asked if we can expect any more Pitt-themed content in the future.
We can't say too much on that right now, but we can say for sure that players should expect more Expeditions content in the future. We are definitely moving forward with that feature.
I was not expecting any more than what was given for information, but I would expect that there would be new missions added at a later date, since it is clearly a feature the team is dedicated to expanding on. They both had some closing words.
Thanks, Nate. This has been pretty exciting. We'd also like to thank all of our fans for playtesting Expeditions on our playtest server and leaving feedback on our Fallout 76 Discord channel. We are developers who listen to our fans, and we try to execute on that feedback within reason. So appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks again. It was great to be here answering questions. And as Craig said, we do listen. We know not every suggestion gets in the game, but we are out there hearing what you say, and we really appreciate all the playtest feedback. It's been very helpful.
I think they were both well spoken at the end, and they conveyed that they do listen and do their best to get the feedback implemented when possible. With this dev dive, there was also an article released too. Honestly though, there is not any information in that has not already been communicated. We know that with the Pitt release, we are also getting the new season titled City of Steel. I covered that in a previous episode, which you can watch here. A link to the article is in the description below. For now, I would like to hear from you. What did you think about the dev dive? Are you excited to go to the Pit? What rewards are you looking forward to? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.